Call the order of the Milan Area Schools Board of Education budget hearing for Wednesday, June 7th, 2023. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. All board members are present. And with that, do we have any comments regarding the 2023-2024 general fund preliminary budget and or the 2023-2024 General Appropriations Act from the audience? That would get turned on this opposite. Should be a switch. Sorry. No.
Yes?
There we go.
Thank you. Good evening, Rachel Hobbs here. Thanks for holding this meeting. I would like some clarification from Mr. Gearbot in particular as to if there's an intention to purchase a new bus during the 2023 or the 23-24 school year. I believe that this is information to clarify because I do believe that Mr. Gearbot strictly said that there would be no purchases of new buses in the coming year. And that's why he advocated for a bus this past school year. And the other push was the building of buses takes time, and so there's a demand. Another question that I have is, and also that that goes hand in hand with, is there a need to purchase a new bus, considering that there is a decline in enrollment? The number that I got from Mr. Gearbot, the projected head count was 1863, 1864, you can correct me if I'm wrong. And then, that bus alone, $91,000 could cover at least one teacher. Then I would also like the board to explain the assignment of over $86,000 for the football track sound system. I thought the amount just a few weeks ago was less. And I think it's hard to justify that considering that we are facing a major decline in enrollment. I know from being involved in other sports within the district and club, in particular swim, we raised $40,000 as a swim club to purchase a new scoreboard in the pool. So I'm curious to know if $86,000 is coming from the district. When you combine the $86,000 with a new school bus, that's $177,000 roughly that's being banked at a time when the district is the only district in 2 counties that is talking about laying off teachers when we're facing a teacher shortage. And I would like to know what that benefit is to our students when we have those 2 expenses in here in the budget. Our kids are paying the consequences of a decline in the enrollment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hobbs.
Just to quickly respond to your questions, there is not a bus purchase in. As we said, we purchased 2 last year, and therefore there will not be 1 purchased. The sound system was approved by the Board of Education at the last board meeting, and that is the dollar amount that they approved, and they wanted it put into an assigned fund balance this year to be used next year. And I have knowledge of at least 2 other districts in the county that are laying off this year There are several districts that are considering it and may be doing it as well.
Other comments on the budget?
Mr. Sislo, just real quickly, when I look at the two, and I think this is the time to ask now, we moved the assignment for the sound system, correct? And that's to come out of next year's preliminary, right, the assigned money?
Yes, so if
Sorry,
you,
Krista.
go ahead.
That's okay. Last meeting, when I did present, I had the expenditure for the sound system in next year's budget, not in this year's.
So it's
But we
all-
are assigning funds, part of our fund balance from this year to be used next year. If you looked at the revised general fund, you'll see the final has a assigned fund balance. When you go to the preliminary for the general fund, you'll see the first column is our final amendment, the second column is my preliminary. At that point, that assigned fund balance is being taken out because I'm assuming we have purchased it and we're using the funds that had been set aside for it.
Is there a reason it went up 22?
It did not go up.
'Cause I guess I'm lost, because what I saw of our budget was 63, and what's on here is 86.
It's been 86. There are
There's
Two
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 parts.
components.
There's two parts to the.
There's a
two parts to it.
$20,000 something component and there's a $60,000
So we just
component.
assigned the highest just to be safe?
I combined
those
them
no.
because you need both of those pieces. One is part of the
Okay.
installation and one is the sound system itself. Okay.
Thank you. Yes, no, thank you. Appreciate it.
Mr. Sislo, can I also point out that at the last board meeting, we discussed specifically having the clubs and sports teams that use that field and that sound system to help raise funds to pay for it. So that was part of the reason that we didn't just approve the expenditure outright at the last meeting, but instead assigned it so that we could have time to allow them to raise funds to help offset the costs.
Other comments regarding the budget? All right, the hearing is closed at 6:52. Hi, everyone. Education regular meeting for Wednesday, June 7th. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you to everyone for attending this evening. All board members are present. Our Maya Farrow, our student board member, is present. Avery Powell will be arriving a little bit late. So with that, I'm going to just postpone the recognition of the student representatives until such time that she arrives. But first, we definitely want to, we are going to recognize our staff retirements for this year. There was a staff celebration, and then we will be recognizing them this evening. Is there anything else that you'd like to say, Mr. Gearbaugh?
We're just so excited to have some folks that are coming to the end of their career, and we are going to miss them greatly. A lot of years of experience headed out the door. They've done amazing things in this district, no matter what their position. We're so excited to be able to recognize them tonight, and we will also be recognizing them at our last day luncheon on Tuesday. We hope that they'll all come there as well. I can say a few more personal things at that meeting than I do here, but truly just thank you for your service. We appreciate everything that you've done. And when you really think about the number of lives you've touched over the years you've been here, the number gets to be pretty astronomical. So thank you so much for everything. And as Mr. Cicillo calls your name, if you could come up, we have a certificate for you tonight. We'll have the plaque next week. But please take time to shake each of the board members' hands. I'm sure that they each want to thank you personally.
Absolutely. And I just want to echo what Mr. Gearbaugh said. We sincerely appreciate all the service that you have given to the Milan area schools. The board knows, or may not know, but we think we might know. All the things that you go through to educate our students, we greatly appreciate it. So I'm going to go in backwards order here. And like Mr. Gearbaugh said, come get your certificate and shake the board member's hand, and we'll go from there. So first, we would like to recognize, if she's here, Joy Smith, 10 years as a paraprofessional. Ms. Smith is not here. Next up is Blue Livingston for 13 years, currently the Dean of Students. Next up is Kim Goffey for 18 years, currently high school counselor. Next up, Holly Fiedler, for 25 years as a social worker. Next up is 25 years for Kelly Smith. Come on up. Who also just had a daughter graduate as well. So another round of applause for Mrs. Smith. And then Tammy Zajac, 26 years. And another round of applause for Mrs. Zajac. So thank you for coming this evening. Once we read this resolution, you are free to go. You definitely don't need to sit through this meeting, but unless you would like to. But I do need a motion to thank Tammy Zajac, Kelly Smith, Holly Fiedler, Kim Goffey, Blue Livingston, and Joy Smith for their service to Milan area schools.
So moved by Freight?
Support by Murray.
It's been moved and supported to Tammy Zajac, Kelly Smith, Holly Fiedler, Kim Goffey, Blue Livingston, and Joy Smith for their service to Milan area schools. Are there other comments that ones would like to make?
Just a tremendous thank you for everything you've done for all of us all these years.
Yes, Mr. Sislo.
Yes, Ms. Minori.
Yeah, the amount of dedication and service that is sitting out there tonight, and the amount of the energy in yourselves that you put into this district and our students, and the leadership that you provided to teachers like myself who were, working very hard to emulate you. You're leaving very big shoes. So enjoy it. Congratulations, and thank you.
Well said. Thank you, Ms. Murray. Any others?
I just want to say a heartfelt thank you to all of you. Everyone on this list taught and counseled some of our most vulnerable and our youngest students. And without all of you, you set them on the path for success. And so we're deeply going to miss you, and so are they. So thank you so much for all of your effort and your hard work and how much you've cared for every student that walked through these doors.
I also just want to add, you're so very much appreciated. It might not seem like it from time to time. I know we've had some interesting school years in terms of COVID and things of that nature. But you're very much appreciated by us, by your peers, and by the students and families within this community. Don't be strangers. Come back and visit, and know that we love you.
Awesome. So I think I did quick math. Hopefully I did it right. I think we have 117 years of experience walking out the door. It's awesome that you guys chose your career to be here at Milan Area Schools, and we do greatly appreciate it. So with that, I do have a motion and a second to thank Tammy Zajac, Kelly Smith, Holly Fiedler, Kim Goffey, Blue Livingston, and Joy Smith for their service to Milan Area Schools. Ms. Heika.
Rosenleacher,
Yes.
Sislo,
Yes.
Farrow,
Yes.
Freight,
Yes.
Gutierrez. Yes. Heika, yes. Murray.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you so much. Another round of applause. Thank you. All right, we will return back up one to our school board student representative recognition. If we could have Ms. Farrow and Ms. Powell, you guys can rise and shake the board member's hand. I have the certificate for you, ladies.
This is so fun. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So I need a motion to thank Maya Farrow and Avery Powell for their service as school board student representatives.
Moved by Farrow.
Support by Rosenleacher.
It's been moved and supported to thank Maya Farrow and Avery Powell for their service as school board representatives. I want to say thank you very much to you, ladies. We do appreciate your service. We appreciate your updates. We appreciate your participation. I greatly appreciate your assistance at graduation. That worked out very well, helping us with the diploma covers. It made it much more, move more smoothly when we were handing those out. So greatly appreciate that, and everything that you guys have, the voice of the students, we appreciate that. Other comments?
Mr. Sislo.
Yes, Ms. Fair. Ms. Freight.
Ms. Rosenleacher.
Oh, Miss Rosenleacher. I have to look now. I'm sorry.
All good.
Miss Rosenleacher.
It's been such a great addition to have you two brilliant young ladies as a part of this board and what you bring to every one of our meetings. So well prepared, so thoughtful, and great questions that you ask. So keep on doing the great work. We need you.
Mr. Sislo?
Yes, Miss Heike.
I want to echo that. I think of all the years I've sat on this board, you two have been the most active and participating of all of our representatives. And I truly appreciate that because you not only focused on the high school, but you focused on the elementary schools and the middle schools as well, which was something that had never happened before. And you're always willing to ask questions and make sure we didn't forget you were here and make sure you were part of graduation, which I thought was incredibly appropriate. So I do appreciate all of your updates and your willingness to say, hey, what about us? Because I think that that's very important, and I've always appreciated it. So, and you guys are going to do wonderful things. If you just take all that tenacity and just carry it with you the rest of your life, you're going to do great. Good job.
Mr. Sislo?
Yes, Miss Murray.
Just briefly, at risk of being a bit repetitive, but it was an absolute joy to have both of you in class many, many years ago when we were, sixth graders. And it's just been an absolute joy to sit with you at this board table and serve with you. And I just very much appreciate your leadership and your example to all of your fellow students. And you really are both walking testimonies to what this district is. So thank you very much to both of you.
Others?
Mr. Sislo?
Yes, Miss Freed.
It's Ms. Freed.
I will get that one right. I apologize.
I just want to thank both of you. Arguably, junior year is your hardest year, and both of you guys are very actively involved in all kinds of things in the district. So being here as often as you've been and helping us out and doing everything you did is tremendous, and I hope I can look forward to seeing you both next year as well, because you just continue to add to our meetings and just the overall atmosphere of what we have here, and I appreciate you both. Thank you.
Mr. Sislo?
Yes, Miss Gutierrez.
Avery and Maya, I know you are both very active and engaged students, and so the fact that you are giving up your Wednesday evenings to spend with us as representatives of your peers and of the district every other week, I think is remarkable and extremely commendable. And as Ms. Heike referenced, not only have you represented the high school students, but the other buildings as well. And one thing that I've appreciated and have really noticed is that it's clear that you are soliciting for feedback from your peers to bring to the board. So it's not just things that you're observing, but you are truly demonstrating your leadership and serving as a representative of students in our district. And that's really amazing to see, and I'm extremely grateful for it. I think it's so important that we have student members on this board, and you two are both exemplars of what this position can be for the board and be for the district. And so thank you so, so much for what you have done.
Excellent.
Mr. Sislo?
Yes, Mr. Farrell.
I'll be very brief. Maya told me that I can't embarrass her. I do want to thank both of you. And I just want to repeat and echo what everybody else said. Your input, the things that you have to contribute, the things that you contribute at these meetings are very useful, very important, and I think that you guys are doing a great job. Thank you.
All right. It's been moved and supported to thank Maya Farrow and Avery Powell for their service as school board representatives. Ms. Heike.
Murray?
Yes.
Rosenleacher?
Yes.
Sislo?
Yes.
Farrow?
Yes.
Freight?
Yes?
Gutierrez?
Yes.
Heike, yes. Motion carries 7-0.
All right, next up on the agenda is public comments. Reminder, this meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business. It is not to be considered a public meeting. There are 2 times for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. When addressing the board, you will be asked to state your name. The board determines the amount of time granted to individuals or groups to speak. Each person shall be allowed to speak for up to 3 minutes. Board members may question speakers but are not obligated to answer questions or make statements or commitments in response to issues raised by the public. In general, such items will be referred to the superintendent for advisement, investigation, study, and/or recommendation, or designated as future agenda items for board consideration. Are there any students who'd like to address the board? Public members who'd like to address the board?
Brian, I've got a question for you. Can you tell me what other districts that you are referring to that are in the county that are anticipating layoffs?
I can share that with you in private. I'm not going to out those other districts. It's something the superintendents have shared with me.
Okay. So I'm just going to piggyback off of the budget hearing. I am deeply disturbed that the budget, with a decline in enrollment, is being balanced on the backs of our students. In particular, the fact that the high school is shifting from a 7-year to from 7-hour to a 6-hour school day. Not less school time, but less of an education opportunity for our students. I've yet to receive any data-driven information that supports that this is in the best interest of our students. I've asked this from multiple meetings, but yet to receive anything. I would ask that the board not approve a proposed budget that does not include cuts to the administrative salary packages. You all know where I stand when it comes to the evaluation of the superintendent. There are the two most crucial points of the review are test scores and enrollment. Our enrollment is down significantly, but there never seems to be a discussion as to the reduction of salaries of those in charge. I have yet to receive a response as to any effort that's being done to improve our enrollment and funding. I don't want to hear the excuse that there is a decline in birth rates. There are other things we can do, and if that's the case, if that's the sole reason for this, then why is that not being discussed by the board? I expect better from this district. I've come from a district that has been in decline, and Tom Farrow, you know exactly what I'm talking about, and how painful it was. And you sat with me in those board meetings and demanded accountability of that superintendent. But I'm not seeing it here. I'm not seeing it here. Our students deserve better. Again, do not approve this budget. Make the superintendent be accountable. Thank you.
Thank you for the comment. Are there others? All right, thank you for those comments this evening. Next up is routine matters for approval. I need a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of May 23rd, 2023.
Moved by Murray.
Gutierrez.
Oh, sorry. Support by Murray.
I got a motion by Gutierrez, supported by Murray, to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of May 23rd, 2023. Discussion. All right, it's been moved and supported to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of May 23rd, 2023. Ms. Heika.
Sislo,
Yes.
Farrow,
Yes.
Freight,
Yes.
Gutierrez,
Yes.
Heika, yes, Murray,
Yes.
Rosenleacher,
Yes.
motion carries 7-0.
Next up, I need a motion to approve the bills and reimbursement of expenses.
Moved by Farrow.
Support by Heika.
It's been moved and supported to approve the bills and reimbursement of expenses. Comments? Any comments or concerns? All right, it's been moved and supported to approve the bills and reimbursement of expenses. Ms. Heika.
Farrow,
Yes.
Freight,
Yes.
Gutierrez,
I abstain because there's a reimbursement to me on it.
Heika, yes, Murray,
Yes.
Rosenleacher,
Yes.
Sislo,
Yes.
motion carries 6-0.
Next up, I need a motion to approve the 2023-2024 MHSAA membership resolution as included in attachment B.
Moved by Heika.
Support by Rosenleacher.
It's been moved and supported to approve the 2023-2024 MHSAA membership resolution as included in attachment B. Mr. Gearbaugh.
Excuse me. Yes, this is an annual resolution required by MHSAA if we want to participate in any of the tournaments at the end of our seasons. Please understand that there is no cost to be a part of MHSAA. They collect all of their funds by ticket sales at those district and regional and state tournaments. So this is actually just approving us to allow our students to participate in MHSAA-sponsored activities.
Any comments or concerns? All right, it's been moved and supported to approve the 2023-2024 MHSAA membership resolution as included in attachment B. Ms. Heika?
Freight?
Yes.
Gutierrez?
Yes.
Heika, yes. Murray?
Yes.
Rosenleacher?
Yes.
Sislo?
Yes.
Pharaoh?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right, next up in regards to board organization, this is a first reading of the 2023-2024 board meeting dates as an attachment C. The one correction that I'm going to put out there right now is the May 22nd meeting for 2024. That meeting, the May 22nd is when senior awards night will be, and then that also is followed by one of the musical concerts. So I'm proposing that we're going to move that meeting to Tuesday, May 21st of 2024. Are there other comments or questions regarding the meeting schedule? Again, this is just a first reading for us to look at, get on our calendars to start planning for next year.
Mr. Sislo?
Yes, Ms. Freight.
Other than that meeting, are all the rest of these all on Wednesdays, correct?
Yep, they are all on Wednesdays, that's correct.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Sislo?
Yes.
As I was looking at the dates, and I understand November being, well, I guess we moved, some months are on the 1st and 3rd, and the majority are on 2nd and 4th. Can you tell me why? No, let's see, November's on the 3rd Wednesday, December and January are on the 1st and 3rd.
Sure. Some of those, specifically like the June 5th one is the first Wednesday, because we need to get that millage rate out to the townships and the tax
Right.
collection agencies, so that they're already asking the school for those items right now. So that's one of the reasons that one's is the first Wednesday. Also, just with the holiday schedule for November, that's why there's just the one meeting in November. And then,
I guess I was assuming December was because of the holiday schedule, the winter
December
break.
and January are both
Okay.
because of
Yeah.
Christmas break.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Sislo?
yes, Ms. Frey.
Piggybacking off of Mrs. Rosenleacher, is it at all, since we're discussing this, possible to move our November one, since it's only one meeting, up to the second week? I don't know if anybody else, I have a conflict myself. I don't know if that's possible.
I believe the reason we made it the third week is the second week would be the night before the MASB conference.
Oh,
And a
okay.
lot of you like to drive up that night.
Yep.
So that one was moved specifically for your conference.
Thank you, Brian.
I try to get all those things on my calendar before
No,
I put
that's
this
great.
together so that we can try
I
to
forgot
avoid all of
myself.
those.
Okay.
Can I just make one observation? I just Googled it very quickly, but Wednesday, February 14th is Ash Wednesday.
Hmm.
So if we can consider moving that one to Tuesday as well. I swear it's not because of Valentine's Day, it's Ash Wednesday. I Googled it, because that's always a problem, so I try to check it ahead of time.
So proposal to move to February 13th, 2024.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, so we'll bring those changes to the next meeting, May 21st and February 13th. All right. Next up in the area of strategic plan business, I need a motion to approve the 2022-2023 general fund budget amendment as presented in attachment D.
Moved by Pharaoh.
Support by Gutierrez.
It's It's been moved and supported to approve the 2022-2023 general fund budget amendment as presented in attachment D. Again, in our last meeting, we had a first reading of this. Ms. Hendricks provided us the detail in regards to those changes for the amendment. We had an opportunity to ask her, Mr. Gearbaugh, any questions in regards to that. Are there other questions or comments in regards to the amendment for this current fiscal year? Hearing none, it's been moved and supported to approve the 2022-2023 general fund budget amendment as presented in attachment D. Ms. Heika.
Gutierrez.
Yes.
Heika, yes. Murray.
Yes.
Rosenleacher.
Yes?
Sislo.
Yes.
Freight. Oh, Farrow.
Yes.
Freight.
No.
Motion carries 6-1. You did say no, right?
Next up is the 2022-2023 debt funds amendment as in attachment E. I need a motion to approve the 2022-2023 debt funds budget amendment as presented in attachment E.
Moved by Heika.
Support by Farrow.
It's been moved and supported to approve the 2022-2023 debt funds budget amendment as presented in attachment E. Again, we had a first reading of this budget at their last meeting and had opportunities to ask questions. Are there other questions or concerns regarding the debt funds budget amendment? All right, it's been moved and supported to approve the 2022-2023 debt funds budget amendment as presented in attachment E. Ms. Heika.
Heika, yes. Murray.
Yes.
Rosenleacher.
Yes?
Sislo.
Yes.
Farrow.
Yes.
Freight.
Yes.
Gutierrez.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Next up, I need a motion to approve the 2022-2023 food service budget amendment as presented in attachment F.
Moved by Heika.
Support by Rosenleacher.
It's been moved and supported to approve the 2022-2023 food service budget amendment as presented in attachment F. And again, this is the second reading. We had the first reading at the last meeting. Any questions or concerns regarding the food service budget amendment? Hearing none. Ms. Heika.
Murray.
Yes.
Rosenleacher.
Yes?
Sislo.
Yes.
Farrow.
Yes.
Freight.
Yes.
Gutierrez.
Yes.
Heika, yes. Motion carries 7-0.
Next up, I need a motion to approve the 2022-2023 student school activities budget amendment as presented in attachment G.
Moved by Gutierrez.
Support by Murray.
It's been moved and supported to approve the 2022-2023 student school activities budget amendment as presented in attachment G. Again, this is the final reading of this budget. Any questions or concerns? It's been moved and supported to approve the 2022-2023 student school activities budget amendment as presented in attachment G. Ms. Heika.
Rosenleacher.
Yes?
Sislo.
Yes.
Farrow.
Yes.
Freight.
Yes.
Gutierrez.
Yes.
Heika, yes. Murray.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right, next on to the 23-24 preliminary budgets. I need a motion to approve the 2023-2024 general fund preliminary budget as presented in attachment H.
Moved by Farrow.
Support by Rosenleacher.
It's been moved and supported to approve the 2023-2024 general fund preliminary budget as presented in attachment H. Discussion.
Mr. Sislo.
Yes, Mr. Farrow.
I just want to comment that the spend on the fund balance right now is at 1.882 million. As I said last meeting, I do think that we will fare better than a spend of 1.882 against fund balance. For those that are not aware, we have to approve a budget prior to knowing all of our revenue expectations. So as I said last meeting, we will know more, and there will be budget adjustments presented to the board in the coming year. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Other comments or questions? Ms. Hendricks, what's budgeted, what's the budgeted increase again for healthcare, the healthcare premium?
I budgeted a 10% increase for the healthcare premiums. That is kind of the number I have been using. We've been coming in lower than that, but this current school year that we're in, we did experience a 10% across the board increase.
Okay.
Do we have any idea what our healthcare spend has been this year to know? Because that premium is based on our spend in the previous years. Do we have any idea?
Because of the window that they use, it's not like January to January, it's
Sure.
October. Based on the knowledge that I have of claims that have gone through, I have a feeling it's going to be another big year for an increase. I'm hoping I am wrong, but we see reimbursements going out, and there have been some substantial ones in the past couple months.
Okay, thank you.
Just to remind the board too, our costs for healthcare come in two parts. We have the premium to Blue Cross Blue Shield, and then we also have what I refer to as we're partially self-funded because we have a $5,000, $10,000 deductible that the district covers for our employees. So we actually have a third party called EHIM that covers that cost. So when we look at our rate increase, we look at both pieces. Obviously, we get a rate increase from Blue Cross Blue Shield, and then we also look at our experience in our amount that we had to spend on covering the deductibles. And EHIM and Brown and Brown are two agencies that help us look at those. And an example is last year, I think if I remember correctly, our rate increase from Blue Cross Blue Shield was going to be closer to 12%, but we were able to decrease the portion that we pay for those deductibles, and we were able to kind of bring that down to a 10%. And so we do use the experience of how much we pay as we're adjusting those self-funded pieces. Does that help provide some more information?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Mr. Sislo, I'm prepared to vote yes on this preliminary budget today because it is a preliminary budget, but I do want to continue to have conversations about maintaining the 2 elementary school teachers that we discussed at the last meeting in order to keep this class size down once the budget becomes, or the revenues become more clear.
Or even, yeah, other potential staff movements or resignations.
Correct.
Or, yeah. Can we talk a little bit about the assigned fund balances and just the theory behind them, and especially in regards to the bus, even though we're not spending it this year, even if we are budgeting for it, because if we use that money for another purpose and then we didn't need a budget, we would have to make adjustments in future budgets in order to cover that cost. So I want that to be understood.
Correct. So working through the assigned fund balances, first you have the Harkness estate, and that is something that the board needs to spend some time this next year making a decision on. If you want to put it into a scholarship fund or if there's some purpose that you want to use it here in the district. So I would recommend that over next year that you look at where you want to put those funds and make that decision. Again, that's money that was left to the district by Don Harkness without any real specific requirements on its use. The assigned fund balance for curriculum is honestly there in case we have a year where we have to make major purchases in more than one area. We're kind of budgeted to be able to tackle one curricular area a year with purchases. If we ever hit a year where the state of Michigan altered the curriculum or something and we had to update more than one, we would need to have that fund balance available. The assigned fund balance for the Paddock Early Childhood Center, that really is just, those aren't our funds. Those are funds specific to that program, which is a standalone self-funded program. So we have to list those because of accounting and auditing purposes, but they're really not our funds to expend. Very similar with the athletics. That is an assigned fund balance in an account that they manage that are not necessarily there for district expenditures. The technology assigned fund balance, as you know, we make large purchases each year. We never know, and our budget is able to handle those purchases for a new set of Chromebooks for certain grades, some of the upgrades we have to do on our servers and on our systems. One of the big expenditures we're going to have coming is our phone system is becoming obsolete, and we will probably be looking at a large expenditure for that. That might be a time where we say it's time to dip into that fund balance. It's there so that if we have a year where the general fund is already tight and we need an expenditure in one of these areas, we have funds there to be able to cover that, and we don't have to say, well, we'll just have to go without. The same is true with buildings and grounds. We have a designated fund balance there so that if a boiler goes, or all of a sudden a section of roof has to be replaced, or whatever the case might be, we tackle the maintenance and we keep things up. We repair our roofs, we do those preventative maintenance things out of the general fund. But if we had a year where something happened, we would have some funds to tap that and not have a crisis if something occurred. The assigned bus is there for the purpose if we have a year where we need two and the general fund can't handle it, or we need one and the general fund can't handle it. And then obviously the athletic sound system is one that you added at the last meeting.
Thank you.
Maybe I'm wrong in the way I think about this, but I always think of the assigned funds as kind of our future savings, right? Like almost like my personal 401k, how I keep putting money in there for when I need it later, in hopes that, other funds will be able to cover those needs later, but it's there if we need it. And that's how I view the assigned fund balance too, is these are savings accounts for when we really need something.
Yeah. And remember, the board has the ability, if at any point they wanted to unassign some of those funds, not necessarily spend it on that specific area, the board has a right to do that. So whenever you're approving a budget, you're kind of also agreeing that it continues to make sense to you to keep those assigned amounts there. Because that's not Krista and I that make the decision on those. That ultimately, in the past, it was the board that set those assigned fund balances up, and it's the board that has the authority to make decisions about those.
I know in regards to the Harkness Estate, one of the things that we were considering was a Grow Your Own initiative, and that's something that we'll definitely continue to talk about to reward those students that want to go into education, potentially making that a multi-year scholarship opportunity was one of the things we were considering and would be supported by Mr. Harkness, I would know. In regards to the assigned fund balance for the sound system, I do hear the public comment in regard to that. I acknowledge it. In my thinking, it's also a safety issue. That's the largest concentration of Milan population on Friday nights when we have home games, and to not have a functioning sound system when we have that large a population in a condensed area, to be able to provide updates to the people attending that event in a public address system way. I think that's an important component, and obviously it's not the only component, but that's one of the things that I think about in regards to that sound system. And I know the swim board has been brought up too, and also I know in regards to that there was one donor that made up more than half of that donation. So that's something that we can also be considered looking for other funds and booster support for this system. So those are my thoughts in regards to those assigned fund balances.
Mr. Sissel, can I add as it relates to the sound system? I agree with you. It can be a safety issue, but also when we're talking about, which is often brought up at meetings, our declining enrollment, we have to think about our facilities and the programs that we can offer our students, because that feeds into enrollment as well. And so if we don't maintain our facilities, including things like a sound system, that can help facilitate an even larger declining enrollment. So it's always a balance that we have to strike between, the educational programs, but then also the extracurricular activities, which our students and families are also looking for, and why, quite frankly, many people come to this district.
And also in regards to the bus, just because there is declining enrollment, it doesn't mean that the boundaries of the school system have shrunk. Is correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
We have, over the last 3 to 4 years, trimmed 2 or 3 bus routes, but we're getting to the point where if we want to keep bus runs under an hour and 10 minutes, we're not going to be able to trim many more bus runs despite the number of students that are on the buses. So we were able to adjust those. We also have had a couple of years where we have traded in 2 buses and only bought 1 bus. So we have downsized the fleet some. So we are managing that fleet in respect to the pupil count. Part of the reason that we have to purchase 2 sometimes is we made a large purchase of buses when we passed the 09 bond. And if you think about those buses we bought in 09 and 2010 and 2011, they're now 10, 11, 12, 13 years old. And so we're having to replace a large chunk of the fleet over a few years. And that's why we've had to come for 2 buses a couple of times in the last few years.
And Mr. Gearbock, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like the last time we had the conversation about the buses, we talked about just the general lifetime of a bus and the number of miles, and how our transportation department, just through sheer will and talent, keep those buses running much longer than we normally anticipate them to. So, I mean, we're already stretching the bus fleet as far as we can and then some.
Yes, I mean, the fact that we have, I think it's 19 or 20 years now of 100% pass rate on our buses is a testament that our drivers and our mechanics take care of them. The number of miles we usually trade a bus in with is north of 200,000 miles. Usually it's closer to 250,000. Every once in a while we do put a new engine in a bus, because if the bus itself is still in good shape and we can put a new engine in, we do that. Part of the issue too, and we spend a lot of time rotating our buses. If you think about it, some of our buses are on dirt roads a majority of the time. It's not good to keep the same bus on that run all the time. We try and switch them up. We switch which buses are running field trips. The last thing we want to do is send one of our oldest buses to Grosse Ile and have it break down if we have a newer bus. So there are times where we'll pull a newer bus off of a bus run, use a sub bus for that, so that that newer bus can take a long distance field trip. There's a lot of management that goes in by our transportation director and our mechanic to make sure that we're getting the most life out of the buses that we possibly can.
Thank you.
Other questions or concerns?
Mr. Sislo?
Yes, Mr. Farrow.
I just wanted to comment for the public as well that in large part the anticipated reduction in revenue is due to not having access to COVID and ESSER-related funds. Also, with regard to the foundation allowance per pupil, we budgeted $450 increase per pupil, and that's the middle range used due to the different government branch proposals. So once we know what's been approved, if that is more than $450 per pupil, that will certainly help our budget. Thank you.
And then just one final thought on enrollment. We definitely in Milan, we had at least 3 large housing developments a while ago with Meadowbrook, Uptown Village, and Eagle Springs, which brought in many young families, including myself. Both of my kids have graduated and I have not replaced them. So that is a factor. I mean, there is, to my knowledge, there's no new housing development in Milan short of those 3. I know Uptown has restarted with some of their empty lots, which is great to see and is helpful. And that's one of the things that, in addition to birth rates, is just the population in the new building within Milan. And perhaps there's something that we can work with City Council in regards to that. I know we've had some meetings together in the past, but I know that's one of the things that I know there was a lot of young families in Eagle Springs, Meadowbrook, and Uptown, which are, again, haven't replaced their kids. So.
Yeah. I think that's a very important point. I can only speak from my own experience. I live in Meadowbrook, and we moved there because the number of kids that were in the neighborhood. And there, at the time, my son, who just graduated on Sunday, went to kindergarten. There were actually 2 bus stops in Meadowbrook because there were so many elementary-aged kids in that neighborhood. And it was not uncommon to see 20 or 30 kids at any given time just in my common backyard. And there were, 3 sets of those common backyards. And that was the case in every set of those backyards. And all of those kids have just grown up now. I mean, my kids are some of the youngest ones in that area in the backyards. And, my son just graduated, and I have a middle schooler and another high schooler. And, they're just aging up. And so that's also contributing to the declining enrollment, and something we should keep in mind as we have these discussions.
All right, other questions or concerns?
Mr. Sislo?
Yes.
After listening to all the different comments and Mr. Gearbox comments, I guess just moving forward, one of the things we used to do was all of the, what we can't change in enrollment, what we used to do was kind of publicize, choosing Milan and having billboards and things. So I beg the board to consider maybe, or Mr. Gearball, if we necessarily can't replace the kids, right, Andrew, that maybe we do something about, I don't want to say branding, but I'm failing me with words on how we advertise and try to bring more in. Shy of housing and things is something we need to consider, and I think that brought quite a few in. Mrs. Gutierrez and I had a conversation about that, and that was very effective. So shy of building new homes, which I don't think any of us are doing, or replacing kids, maybe that's something the district needs to look into. I also know that Mr. Farrow and I have had a couple conversations on the amounts that we assign, and as you brought up tonight, the board needs to decide that. I do think, like Mrs. Heike, if that is our savings account and we're doing that, then we definitely want to be able to afford what we're saving for. So when I look at the bus, I know that's gone up and inflation's gone up and things, and at the risk of sounding kind of crazy, if we're saving for that rainy day, we might want to make sure when it rains we can cover it. So some of those funds, it seems like it might need to be reassessed and evaluated on.
I agree. I think in the very near future, I will be talking to the board about considering developing not a large, but a small advertising budget that we could go back out and think about mailers, think about billboards, think about some of those things, think about social media advertising or something to help attempt to draw some new students in. So, very good point.
Mr. Sislo?
Yes, Ms. Gutierrez.
I agree with what Ms. Freight just said about the need to think about marketing this district, and I think that's incumbent on all of us that are in this district to think about marketing our own district and talking to families and friends. And I mentioned when I was interviewing as a candidate that I moved to Milan after seeing this really lovely bus wrap on an Ann Arbor City bus. I'd never heard of Milan, and so those things work, I think, is what we need to remember. And we have a lot of students in this part of the state. Sure, we have declining birth rates. That's completely factual. We are challenged by our real estate in this community that is not turning over and not growing. That is something to speak with our city council and our city council representatives about, and that's not just for the board, but that's for all of our constituents here in the city. We should be asking those questions of our potential city council members. We're going to have a lot of potentially new incoming members on city council. But I would also like to encourage the community to think deeply about how we might market and advertise and amplify the wonderful things that are happening in this district. And in fact, we have a big red board chat coming up on June 20th at 6:30 to 8 in the Simons Theater, and we are going to be talking about this very thing, about district marketing and how that relates to budget and then budget issues in general. And so I would hope, and I encourage the community to come to that with not just questions, but ideas as well. Many people in this community have great ideas about what they love about this community, about what could be important selling points, and about different populations and touch points that we could be working towards as a district to recruit and bring in new students, new families, and then work systemically throughout the city to be able to make that reality for families who want to be here.
Thank you. And we also need to include our townships in regard to that as well.
I knew you were going to mention the township. I knew you were going to mention the township.
They're very important. Right, Mr. TP?
Well, that keeps me in the loop, so I appreciate it.
Yeah. Any other questions or concerns? All right. It's been moved and supported to approve the 2023-2024 general fund preliminary budget as presented in attachment H. Ms. Heike?
Sislo,
Yes.
Pharaoh,
Yes.
Freight,
Yes.
Gutierrez,
Yes.
Heike, yes. Murray,
Yes.
Rosenleacher,
Yes.
motion carries 7-0.
Next up, I need a motion to approve the 2023-2024 debt funds preliminary budget as presented in attachment I.
Moved by Pharaoh.
Support by Heike.
It's been moved and supported to approve the 2023-2024 debt funds preliminary budget as presented in attachment I. Any questions or concerns in regards to this? All right, it's been moved and supported to approve the 2023-2024 debt funds preliminary budget as presented in attachment I. Ms. Heike?
Pharaoh,
Yes.
Freight,
Yes.
Gutierrez,
Yes.
Heike, yes. Murray,
Yes.
Rosenleacher,
Yes.
Sislo,
Yes.
motion carries 7-0.
Next up, I need a motion to approve the 2023-2024 food service preliminary budget as presented in attachment J.
Moved by Gutierrez.
Support by Murray.
It's been moved and supported to approve the 2023-2024 food service preliminary budget as presented in attachment J. Any questions or discussion?
Mr. Sislo?
Yes, Mr. Farrer.
I just want to reiterate what was said last meeting, that the governor's plan with regard to free meals for all students, that's not been approved yet, so that's not included in this budget. Am I correct, Krista? Okay, thank you.
Yes, you are correct.
Any other comments or concerns?
Krista, I have kind of a crazy question. What's lunch cost these days? Do you know?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I
I figured it's a
apologize.
crazy question. I was just curious what it was actually running these days. Do you think of it? Can you know?
I'm not positive, but we have
Like
not
three-
raised it in a couple of years.
So is that still
Lunch to
150?
families or lunch to cost to the district?
To the kids. Yeah, for the family. Like when you go in and get lunch, isn't it about $3.50? I thought.
I think it's about $3.64. If I know my daughter had $4 left in her account the other day, and I was like, "You're good for one more day." It's under $4.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Carrie.
And of course, that doesn't include the à la carte items they throw on.
Correct. That's just for the hot lunch today.
Thank you both. Appreciate it.
Mr. Sislo?
Yes, Mr. Farrer.
I'm sorry, this also includes the food service contract, the increase that we had approved at a prior meeting.
Any other questions or comments? All right, it's been moved and supported to approve the 2023-2024 food service preliminary budget as presented in attachment J. Ms. Heike?
Freight,
Yes.
Gutierrez,
Yes.
Heike, yes. Murray,
Yes.
Rosenleacher,
Yes.
Sislo,
Yes.
Pharaoh,
Yes.
motion carries 7-0.
Next up, I need a motion to approve the 2023-2024 student school activity funds preliminary budget as presented in attachment K.
Moved by Heike.
Support by Murray.
So moved and supported to approve the 2023-2024 student school activity funds preliminary budget as presented in attachment K. Again, this is basically the pass-throughs for all the student accounts. Any questions? All right, it's been moved and supported to approve the 2023-2024 student school activity funds preliminary budget as presented in attachment K. Ms. Heike?
Gutierrez,
Yes.
Heike, yes. Murray,
Yes.
Rosenleacher,
Yes.
Sislo,
Yes.
Pharaoh,
Yes.
Freight,
Yes.
motion carries 7-0.
All right. Next up, we need a motion to approve the 2023-2024 General Appropriations Act as presented in attachment L.
Moved by Pharaoh.
Support by Rosenleacher.
It's been moved and supported to approve the 2023-2024 General Appropriations Act as presented in attachment L. So this is what sets the millage rate. Mr. Gearbaugh.
Yes, I just wanted to share some information as the General Appropriations Act really is a summary of all of the budgets that you just approved. It puts them into a little bit different format, and it follows the format that the state of Michigan wants to see them in. So every district has to turn in a General Appropriations Act that looks very similar to this. This is also the document that sets the millage rates, but I think that it's important to understand that the Board of Education has very little leeway in what those millage rates are. So the first thing I wanted to do is just talk through this document a little bit and share some history about millage rates, and let folks really understand kind of exactly what this document means and what this document does. So on the first page, you will see that this is really dealing with the operating budget. Districts receive their funding for the operating budget based on per pupil counts. 10% of that is on the previous February count, and 90% of that is on that current school year's October count. So while taxes are paid both to the district and the state of Michigan, in the end, the balancing comes from the state of Michigan determining how much funding we should get solely based on our pupil counts. Taxpayers pay property taxes in accordance with state guidelines. And the first thing that happens is all taxpayers in the state of Michigan pay 6 mills on their property to the state for their property taxes towards education. Some districts are donor districts because they send more tax money to the state than they get back, and some districts are receiving districts because they send less money to the state than they get back. Most districts, and I believe all districts, have passed an additional 18 mills on non-homestead property. And this whole process started when Proposal A was passed. There is a requirement on non-homestead property in most districts to pay an additional 18 mills. The interesting thing with those funds is those funds actually come to the school district, but then it's subtracted from the amount of money that we are supposed to get based on our per pupil counts. If some of those taxes are not paid and are delinquent, the state doesn't care. They still subtract the total amount from our per pupil funding. In Milan, we renewed that millage in 2013. We had had some Headley rollbacks prior to 2013 to where we were not collecting 18 mills. And for those that don't know, a Headley rollback is basically at some point every year, the state of Michigan verifies how much you are collecting in your taxes and how much you should be able to collect. And if you are collecting more than you are allowed to because of the taxable value, then they will roll back how many mills you can collect. When we went to renew this millage in 2013, we were at the 17.9748. At that point, it did not make sense to attempt to renew back to 18, which we could have done, but that would have then been deemed a new tax, and it's a lot easier to pass a renewal. And you're really talking about thousands of dollars in a $1 million budget that deals with millions of dollars. Since then, we have had a couple of more rollbacks, and we currently collect 17.9694 mills of those 18 mills. When we passed that millage in 2013, the community passed it for 20 years, and so that will expire in 2033. And at that point, the community would have to, the district would have to go for another approval from the community. They could decide whether they were going to do the 16.9694 or whether the district is going to go back for 18 mills. That would be a decision the district would make at that time. Again, that's all dealing with the operating millage. And really, we don't have any control in setting any of that. That's all determined by the state of Michigan with the 6 mills and the 18 mills with Headley rollbacks determined by the voters in 2013 that continues until 2033. The debt millage, in 2009, our voters approved to maintain a millage rate of 8.04 mills for debt. That allowed us to borrow an additional, a little bit over $49 million to remodel Paddock, Simons, and the middle school. We also had some debt from building the high school in 2003, 2004. But we were able to, in 2009, 2010, just basically extend the number of years that we were going to pay 8.04 mils, and the voters approved that in 2009. We maintained 8.04 mils until 2013, 2014, when during lame duck, the legislation changed the ballgame, and they changed the rules of the game in the school bond loan fund. There had been language in the school bond loan fund that basically insinuated that if you borrowed money from the school bond loan fund, then you had to have that paid off in 30 years. No one had ever had an issue with that because every district's property values had always increased, and it had never been an issue. If you remember what was going on in the economy in 2013, 2014, the housing market had crashed, and housing values had dropped. Taxable values had actually dropped, and in some districts, the amount of money collected, as in Milan, the amount of money collected for 8.04 mils was going to cause a situation where we were not going to have our school bond loan fund debt paid off in 30 years. There were about 30 districts that sat in that situation. The state of Michigan was concerned as to what that was going to do to their rating, which would affect all of the state of Michigan's borrowing. So during lame duck, they voted and they basically said, you know, we are going to mandate that districts pay off their debt in 30 years. And in order to do that, we will allow their millage rates to increase to 13 mils with no vote of the taxpayers. There were numerous districts, several in our county, that were bumped up over a couple of years to 13 mils. Some of those at 13 mils still have over 99 years payoff deadlines. So it has not accomplished getting those districts down to the 30-year timeline. It has gotten us down to the 30-year timeline. And what happened was in 2014, 2015, we went from 8.04 mils to 9.24 mils, totally based on a formula the state of Michigan uses to determine payoff date. We had no control over that millage rate. In 2015, 2016, we jumped to 13 mils, the highest that the state will allow, again, based on a formula that we had no control over. We stayed at 13 mils through 2018, 2019. In 2018, 2019, taxable values started to increase again, and we got back to the point where we were going to be able to pay our debt off a little bit quicker than the 30-year payoff requirement. So in 1920, we were able to drop that millage rate to 10.4. It stayed 10.4 in 2021. We were able to drop it to 9.9 in 21-22, and then we were able to drop it to 9.75 in 22-23. I will tell you that we would have been able to drop it again in 23-24. But with what's happening in the economy right now, we are required to alter our assumed interest rate on the school bond loan from 3.5% to 5%. As you know, interest rates on everything are going up. And so that increase from 3.5% to 5% on our school bond loan debt undid the ability of our additional tax collections to be able to meet that 30-year payoff. And so while our tax collections would have allowed us to lower it again from 9.75, when you have to bring that 5% interest rate into the formula, we can't drop from 9.75. We're blessed that we are still in a situation where those two offset and we didn't have to, based on the formula, raise the millage rate again. So I'm glad that we're at least able to maintain it at 9.75. So again, there are formulas and there are decisions made by the state of Michigan that alter our millage rate. We don't really get to pick it. We don't get to set it. We just have to approve what those formulas in the state of Michigan tell us we have to charge. And so for this year, those millage rates, as shown, the operating millage rates are on the first page of attachment L, and the debt millage rates are on page 3 of attachment L. And again, they will all be maintained at the same level that they were last year. Thank you.
Questions or concerns? Thank you for that explanation, Mr. Gearbaum. All right, it's been moved and supported to approve the 2023-2024 General Appropriations Act as presented in attachment L. Ms. Heika.
Heika, yes. Murray?
Yes.
Rosenleacher?
Yes.
Sislo?
Yes.
Farrow?
Yes.
Freight?
Yes.
Gutierrez?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Next up, I need a motion to authorize the borrowing up to $1.5 million against the anticipated state aid for the 2023-2024 fiscal year as specified in the borrowing resolution included as attachment M.
Moved by Farrow.
Support by Rosenleacher.
It's been moved and supported to authorize the borrowing up to $1.5 million against the anticipated state aid for the 2023-2024 fiscal year as specified in the borrowing resolution included in it as attachment M. And just so everybody's aware, because we don't get our state payments until September, our first state payments, this is the reason that we need to borrow this. We've done this every year, I believe, that I've been on the board, and there's other districts that do it as well, but Mr. Gearbaugh can explain further.
Yes. It's very common for districts to have to borrow. It's really not an issue of, there's a big difference between spending fund balance and needing to borrow for cash flow. And this borrowing is really something that the state of Michigan sets up for all of their districts. It's kind of interesting. The state of Michigan decides not to give districts 12 equal payments throughout the 12 months of the year. And because of that, they cause districts to have cash flow issues, and then they set up a whole system to loan us money and charge us interest on that loan. So it's kind of an interesting situation that they set up. A lot of districts do borrow. I can tell you when I took over as superintendent, because of our lower fund balance that we had at that point, we actually used to borrow, I know it was $3 million at one point, it might have even been $3.5 million. So we have gotten that down. We've dropped as low as $1 million. But the process to determine this, again, is all dictated. Ms. Hendricks goes through a long process of looking at cash flow each month, and then finds the lowest month, and then looks at cash flow each week, and then finds the lowest week and looks at cash flow each day. And then based on all of those calculations, we determine how much we would need to borrow. All of those documents then go to our law firm, and our law firm, the financial office of their law firm, reviews all of those documents, because what they don't want is districts borrowing more than they have the need to borrow. So this is all very managed and very controlled beyond our calculations. So again, and you'll see the long resolution from Troon that develops that. And I will tell you, you also have a letter, because the state of Michigan has faith in Troon, and they actually use Troon to handle all of the paperwork from the state of Michigan's side. So the state of Michigan does ask that Troon send a letter explaining that it is not a conflict of interest in the way that it's handled, that Troon be both working for the state of Michigan lending and school districts borrowing. That would be true for any district that uses Troon Law Firm and also has to borrow. So again, we're asking this year to be allowed to borrow up to $1.5 million. Again, this is not because we are overspending. This is a cash flow issue, and then it gets repaid once we start getting our state aid checks.
Just for transparency, I handed Ms. Hendricks a document that was the requirement to be signed by the president and the secretary to set the millage rate, so that she can take that information to the taxing entities as quickly as possible, because they are asking for it. So that was what was handed to Ms. Hendricks. Any questions or concerns regarding this borrowing? All right, it's been moved and supported to authorize borrowing up to $1.5 million against anticipated state aid for the 23-24 school fiscal year as specified in the borrowing resolution included as attachment M. Ms. Heika.
Murray?
Yes.
Rosenleacher?
Yes.
Sislo?
Yes.
Farrow?
Yes.
Freight?
Yes.
Gutierrez?
Yes.
Heika, yes. Motion carries 7-0.
All right, thank you. You're excused, Ms. Hendricks. Thank you for your service. All right, next up in the area of learning and environment of culture, we continue the book study of Why Meadow Died. And again, this is a book about the school shooting that took place on February 14th, 2018, where there's a former student opened fire on students and staff at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in the Miami suburban town of Parkland, Florida, United States, murdering 17 people and injuring 17 others. We're on to part 4 of the book, which is post-shooting, chapters 13 and 14. Chapter 13 presented several things that happened during the week that would have been graduation for the author's daughter. There was a Today Show interview with the school resource officer who stayed outside the school during the shooting. You may see that right now his trial just started in regards to that. Some families of the victims did not like the interview because the officer changed his story. A newspaper article came out about a Secret Service agent who performed a security assessment at the December before the shooting. He provided several recommendations that the school did not implement. We've talked about Kenny Preston before. He's the student reporter who investigated the shooting, and he was not allowed to graduate as he had semesters without as many credits as he should have. The author resigned from the school's commission to investigate what wrong because he was asked to drop his wrongful death lawsuits against the school resource officer and a behavioral health organization used by the school. There was another newspaper article that noted the district was not releasing any records pertaining to the high school. The article also released the contract of a firm that conducted the investigation of the school, and part of the contract was to further assist the district in ongoing litigation matters. The district initially denied media access to graduation, even though they had allowed it before. The Broward County Commissioners hired the Police Foundation to do an independent investigation, and then that contract was changed in order to fill any gaps in the report that came from the State Commission. There was also a story during that week that the shooter had an $800,000 trust fund from his mother, which some thought was the public defender was trying to exhaust that money in order to gain leniency for the client. The author determined that this was not the case as he volunteered to be a defense witness against the school. The day before graduation, prosecutors released the sworn statement of a campus security monitor who saw the shooter walk onto campus with a gun, but didn't call what they deem a code red. This monitor had also apparently sexually harassed several students, including the author's daughter. The school district's professional standards committee recommended that he be fired, but he was given a 3-day suspension and still worked at the school. Soon after the graduation, the author decided to go to the principal with a few other parents to talk to the principal about this campus security monitor continuing to work at the school. The security monitor was eventually let go during the summer. So that was chapter 13, the events around graduation. Chapter 14 really got into, because of those events, there were several people that wanted to elect new school board members. The author talks about supporting a candidate who had taught at the high school for 13 years before becoming a professor. One of that candidate's best friend was the football coach who died when he was shielding students from the shooter. The newspaper supported the candidate he was running against. The slate of candidates that this candidate was running with fell apart. This candidate also met with the Broward Teachers Union. He believed he had their endorsement, but ultimately he did not. Because of these issues, the team of this candidate did a lot of door knocking throughout the district to meet people face to face in regards to his candidacy. And so that was the summary of chapters 13 and 14 for the book. Other comments or questions regarding the book?
Mr. Sisler, I don't have any comments specifically about these 2 chapters, but we've been discussing this book now for several months. That was written by Andrew Pollack. I'd like the board, I'm not suggesting that we do another book study, but I'd like the board and the community to know that there is another father whose name is Fred Gutenberg, whose daughter Jamie was also murdered in the Parkland shooting. Mr. Gutenberg has a very different path forward in dealing with his grief and loss than Mr. Pollack. And he's also written a couple of books. One is entitled Find the Helpers, which I've also been reading. It's an amazing book, and I would encourage my fellow board members to maybe on their own time look into that book. And then also, if you are looking for some a different take on our path forward as a nation and how to deal with school shootings, Mr. Gutenberg also has a very active Twitter account, which I also find very helpful and informational.
Mr. Sislo?
Yes, Mr. Farrell.
I don't have any comments on chapter 13 and 14. You did a good job of summarizing. Just in terms of current events, the Broward School Board is actually searching for a new superintendent. They have narrowed the search to 3 candidates, and one of them is Mr. Louis Solano, Deputy Superintendent of Detroit Public Community Schools. So just a current event.
Mr. Sislo?
Yes, Ms. Rosenleacher.
Again, and I echo what Mrs. Heike said, you know, we have been reading and talking about this book. We're kind of past the major events that occurred and now the aftermath, but I think it's really important to note, we just approved at our last meeting the Professional Development Committee for the district, and one of the things that they're continuing to want to focus on is school safety. And so I commend that committee, I commend Mr. Gearbaugh, that this is very serious, and we continue to work towards keeping our faculty, our staff, and all of our students safe here in Milan area schools.
And we have had a security assessment performed by an outside agency, and we have implemented recommendations from that.
Mr. Sislo?
Yes, Ms. Murray.
Yeah, that was actually one of my comments, you know, in looking at these 2 chapters through the Milan lens and trying to find takeaways that we can apply to our current, you know, our situation in our community. And that was something that stuck out to me, was that at the beginning of chapter 13, he discusses the evaluation that was offered to Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, but was largely ignored and not put into practice by the staff. And that is, you know, gratefully not the case here in Milan. And I look forward to digging more into those recommendations from our evaluations as we move forward into next school year. He also, like just a page or 2 before that too, the author writes about, you know, continuing to raise issues with the way in which the community was informed, the way in which information was shared or not shared, the apparent attempts at cover-ups or kind of gaslighting of the community, or trying to protect reputations over honoring the losses and dealing with the shortcomings that the district very clearly had in managing this situation. And so for me, that was just a good reminder for us in our district that we do have a community, a responsibility to our community and to our students to always keep those lines of communication open. So I'm really encouraged by the work that's happening on our communication board and the superintendent's communication committee, and just the community members who continue to bring that to the board as a high priority, because I could not agree more. The more open, the more honest, the more transparent, the more collaborative we are, the safer we'll all be, and the more confidence we'll have in each other. And then lastly, the only other comment I had was from page 260, where the author is discussing his frustration about not being able to come together as a country in light of this tragedy, and in his opinion, the efforts by the media to just further divide us along partisan lines. And I share that frustration with the author deeply. I would guess that we probably don't agree on some of the more intricate items politically, perhaps, but that is one thing that I am always frustrated about. And for me, you know, bringing it back to a Milan focus, for me it was a reminder about how we personally participate in the media and the publicity. This kind of relates to what Ms. Gutierrez was saying earlier about how do we speak about our district? How do we speak about our schools, about our students? How do we communicate with one another when we are faced with a challenge, whether it's a lockdown or a budget? It's all related, and the manner in which we conduct ourselves is critically important at all times. So I would just raise that for the community and as a reminder for myself that the way that we participate in communication with one another matters greatly. And there are always going to be these forces outside of our 48160 that are attempting to yank us in one direction over the line of scrimmage, but it's incumbent on all of us to filter that out, rise above it, and keep our focus on what matters here in Milan. So with that, I pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Murray.
Mr. Sislo?
Yes, Ms. Gutierrez.
I really appreciate Ms. Heike raising the point about the book, about Find the Helpers. It was a book I remember picking up in a bookstore several years ago, and I picked it up because it was a phrase that my son taught me about Find the Helpers. He went through preschool at the PECC, and it was something that they learned as part of their curriculum, was finding the helpers. And they had an assignment that night to take a walk in the community and find the helpers in town. And so we talked about the helpers that get our delicious ice cream at the dairy barn. We talked about our helpers that help us cross the street safely to get home from school. We talked about the helpers who check us out at the grocery store. And so by the time this book came out, my son was 6 or 7 years away from preschool, but it was a phrase that we often still had in our vernacular within our family about finding the helpers. And this is, I think, in line with the theme of the other comments I've made about this book before, that, as Ms. Murray mentioned, we as a society have become completely divided on issues being this or that, and that it's important for all of us to take a step back and see those who are helping, how we can help each other, how we can be kind and compassionate citizens, how we can be part of the solution, not only part of echoing the problem. And of course, if there is an issue that needs attention, it is our responsibility as active members of society to raise that issue. Yet, in raising those issues, we also need to be active helpers, active participants in the conversation. And I raise this because I just had this memory jog, Michelle, when you said this. I'd forgotten I'd read that book, and I remember picking it up because that was part of the fiber of what our children learn in our district, is being helpers, seeing helpers, appreciating people in the ways, in the diverse ways in which they can contribute to society. And I want us all as a community to really lean into that importance of being a helper, being part of an active conversation that is productive and towards solutions. And I think in many ways, although I agree there's some things in this book that I don't completely agree with either, I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate the attempts at a very serious dialogue about the ways in which issues should be identified and managed and helped. And if we all lean into a way of looking at these issues and these conversations, I think that it will be really important as we're dealing with these difficult things. And so I echo Ms. Heike's recommendation to read that book too, because frankly, the two of them in parallel are very different, but actually quite complementary in some ways. So thank you.
Thank you. Others? All right, so we will finish the book at the next meeting, chapters, and the last two chapters, then the epilogue. So, next up in the area of personnel and leadership, I need a motion to appoint Daniel Douglas to the position of theater manager at the base salary of $42,000 effective immediately.
Moved by Farrow.
Support by Rosenleacher.
I heard Rosenleacher.
I did too.
So, sorry, Tom. It's been moved and supported to appoint Daniel Douglas to the position of theater manager at a base salary of $42,000 effective immediately. I do want to thank Ms. Yvette Cashmere. She has been outstanding in this role, very supportive, and her student Army staff that do all the ins and outs of this theater. I know last time at our meeting, they had to take this down quickly in order to get it prepared for the next day. So there's just a lot that goes behind the scenes. And this position is difficult, I've seen because of COVID, just because of people that have this expertise are highly sought after in other areas, such as Ms. Cashmere, and that's where she's going to the U of M to do this there at the graduate school. So, any other questions or comments, Mr. Gabriel?
I just wanted to echo first your thanks to Yvette Cashmere and actually her husband who comes and covers
Yes.
when she's not available. Just a tremendous team, and she did such a tremendous job. She not only managed and led all of the events in here, she also worked on the facility and made some improvements. We're actually making an improvement right now that came from a recommendation, because when this theater was built, the heat actually blows right on the curtains and is damaging the curtains, and so we are getting deflectors put on and making some changes. So she was just a great all-around theater manager. She helped us select this new candidate. She's actually worked with this new candidate and knows him. And the most important part is, because of Yvette's recruiting of events to the building, we are very, very close to this position actually being self-funding. You know, when we first hired this position, we were only bringing in really one main renter. And so when I came to you originally for this position, we had to put money out of the general fund budget towards this. I don't want to say we're fully covered yet, but we are very, very close with the money that she brings in, that she generated through rentals. And I've already talked with Dan that we've got to keep that moving and get that up a little bit more. And at that point, not only, the district has no intent to make money off the theater, but if we could get to the point where we can cover the whole salary of the theater manager, and we enjoy the benefits of that theater manager with band concerts and choir concerts and all those other things, and maybe we can get to the point where maybe through our rentals, we're also doing some upgrades to this facility. You know, starting to look at the carpet, starting to look at some of those other things. So truly, that is all due to Yvette Cashmere bringing in that business and being out there pounding the pavement and getting those renters to come in, and honestly, keeping them happy when they come in. Because when you run an event with thousands of people attending over a weekend, it's difficult, and she's done a tremendous job. I can't thank her enough. I consider her a friend, and I will have her cell phone number in my phone for a long, long time. And just truly appreciate everything she's done. And she's not done yet. She's going to stay on, continue through in the hourly way she has been to help train Dan and get him fully up to speed and ready to go. So just tremendous thanks to her, and excited to bring Dan on board and get him started.
Mr. Zislo.
Yes, Mr. Farrell.
I was going to say this for my board comments, but I too want to comment on Yvette. I want to offer my personal and professional thanks and express my admiration for the job that you've done as our theater manager. You've done amazing things on behalf of our district, and you're so well liked and respected by the students. I think it says a whole lot about you for agreeing to help in the transition to a new theater director. I also want to comment for the community. I have hearing deficiency, and Yvette never hesitated to help me with making sure that I could hear, making sure that I had an extra speaker next to me. She responded to my emails, and I'm just going to miss her tremendously. And I know the students think the world of you. I wish you well in your personal and professional endeavors. And again, thank you so much, and welcome to Daniel. You've got big shoes to fill.
Mr. Sislo?
Yes, Ms. Eichmann.
I want to echo many of the comments. I have been here for some of the community events that get hosted here that Ms. Cashmere and her team run, and they are so smooth. they run so smoothly and seamlessly that you often hear people in the rotunda who aren't community members but come from other communities about what a wonderful facility this is and how the sound is wonderful and everything has just been moving like clockwork. And that is all thanks to Ms. Cashmere and her team. But more importantly, I want to thank her for all the time she has put into our students. Our students truly do adore her, and they have a bond with her, and they trust her. And I think that that's just so important, that she is a trusted adult to many of our students. And I'm sad that we're going to lose you, and I'm sure the students are too. But I just want to thank her for all the time and effort she's not only putting to the building, but our students as well. Because I think that some people in the community don't know. I mean, we've had a lot of really late meetings in the last couple of months, and Ms. Casimir is here until the very end, and then she stays and helps clean up and break all of this down. So it's just been such a huge dedication to the building, to our students more importantly, and I deeply appreciate you and wish you the best of luck.
Mr. Sisler?
Yes, Ms. Murray.
Again, at risk of repetition, I will try to keep it short, but had the pleasure of working with Ms. Cashmere on a couple of productions for the middle school, and you said it, Michelle. It's incredible what our students have learned to do and self-manage because of your leadership. When I think about the Mamma Mia set specifically, it was just a triumph, an absolute marvel of high school theater, and to know that our students did that under your leadership and guidance, and that they're now equipped to do that again in the future. Like, you aren't just putting on shows for them, you are building them as individuals. And for that, I'm just so deeply grateful. I learned so much from the event, and yeah, I just wish you the absolute best. I can't see you up there, but thank you for your time here. So,
Any others? All right, it's been moved and supported to appoint Daniel Douglas to the position of theater manager at a base salary of $42,000, effective immediately. Ms. Heike?
Rosenleacher,
Yes.
Sislo,
Yes.
Farrow,
Yes.
Freight,
Yes.
Gutierrez,
Yes.
Heike, yes, Murray,
yes.
motion carries 7-0.
All right, next up in the area of communications and community engagement brings us to public comment. Just a reminder, this meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public meeting. There are 2 times for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. When addressing the board, you will be asked to state your name. The board determines the amount of time granted to individuals or groups to speak. Each person shall be allowed to speak for up to 3 minutes. Board members may question speakers but are not obligated to answer questions or make statements or commitments in response to issues raised by the public. In general, such items will be referred to the superintendent for advisement, investigation, study, and/or recommendation, or designated as future agenda items for board consideration. Are there any students that would like to address the board? Public members who'd like to address the board? All right, thank you for attending this evening. Next up is student board representative comments. Ms. Farrell.
We would like to give.
Oh, hold on, yeah. I think it can. Tap it again, I think. Oh, I thought, okay.
Oh, mine works.
We would like to give a congratulations to Malia Warman for earning All-State honors in high jump, and then all of the spring sports teams for their successful seasons. And then an upcoming event is the high school boys soccer meeting after school on Friday, June 2nd. And then thank you to the Milan High School Student Council for putting on another successful Grill Out Chill Out event today. It was very nice. I enjoyed it.
Once again, congratulations to Malia Warman on her All-State honors high school jump at the state finals for track. And just congratulations to all the sports for their phenomenal seasons. Maya and I are extremely proud to represent each sport and ultimately brag about all of their accomplishments and all that they do and all the progress that they make throughout the seasons. There are no games or sporting events other than the soccer meeting this week. There was, however, an email sent out to all students except for the current seniors by Mr. Hall, our athletic director, to sign up for any fall sports. Today was the Grill Out Chill Out, as Maya mentioned, at the high school, brought by student council, which Maya and I both are a part of. I would say it was a big success. It seemed like a good turnout. Miss Freight actually attended. I feel like I should mention that it was also an opportunity for all freshmen and juniors to get their juniors to get their yearbooks. Miss Keel and the rest of the yearbook staff did an amazing job on it. I thought it turned out very nice. There were some interesting pictures posted in there. I know there's going to be a lot of students that are going to be mad that I'm mentioning this, but just a reminder that final exams are coming up, and I personally only have 2 courses here, so I'm only aware of the dates of the 2. All English courses will be having their final exam on Thursday, June 8th, and all history exams, whether I like this or not, have their final exams on Monday, June 12th. As I mentioned, those are the only courses I'm aware of for final exam dates. But I do have one concern I would like to address with the board that a lot of students have mentioned to me. The light outside of the district office, the one that keeps like flashing, a lot of students have come up to me. I'm not sure if they've come up to Maya about it, but as they're leaving sporting events and even after cheer practice, it really bothers them, and they just wanted to know if that was on the agenda to be
Mr. Gerber,
fixed.
Mr. Yep,
I'll actually respond to that. So first, if you look up, they're new lights. We had them replaced, and the company told us that the lights were the issue. Obviously, the lights weren't the issue because they started blinking again today. So they will be out at no charge to the district to find out what the issue is. The problem was we had to get a company that had a lift high enough because those poles are actually 70 foot tall. But they were replaced about 2 weeks ago, and I went out today and they're blinking again. And so the company will be back. I totally agree. I walk out in the dark regularly, and it is difficult. So we are working to get it fixed, absolutely.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring it up because there were some students that were a little worried about pulling out of the parking lot and hitting any cars.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing it up. No problem. And like I said, we've replaced them, and now we need to find out what the real issue is, and the company will be back out.
That was all I had.
Thank you. Superintendent comments, Mr. Gearbaugh.
This time of year is always busy and just a lot to share. It's only been 2 weeks since our last board meeting, but I always go through the calendar and kind of look at what's happened. So our Milan High School varsity girls soccer team was defeated by Grosse Ile on June 2nd in the district finals. The game, if you don't know, went into overtime and was eventually determined in a shootout. It was an incredibly hard-fought game. Our girls played amazingly well. We don't always come out on top, but they should be very proud of their actions and their work on the team. The Milan High School varsity softball team beat Dundee on June 3rd in the district semifinals, and then they were defeated by Airport in the district finals that same day. The Milan High School varsity baseball team beat Tecumseh on June 3rd in the district semifinals, and then they were defeated by Adrian in the district finals that same day. I think it's important to go back and hear those 3 announcements. We had 3 spring sports in the district finals. That's impressive. Our athletes are just doing an amazing job, and the thing that I'm proud of is when you also look at our athletes' GPAs, they're just as impressive. And so just great to have well-rounded students in our high school. It's also the season of graduations. The young adult graduation ceremony was held on June 1st. It was absolutely wonderful. We celebrated 2 students graduating, and for them, graduating means they're 26 years old and they're aging out of that young adult program. But we just have such a tremendous young adult teacher and parapros that they will continue to help those students. They're helping them get jobs. They're helping them transition into the community. They've helped them gain the skills to be able to possibly at some point live on their own. Just an amazing program, and it's so exciting. I know it's odd to have a graduation ceremony during the day, and I'd like to explain the reason is those students want their fellow students there for the ceremony, and they know that some of them would not be able to get back in the evening. So the students that are graduating actually determine when the graduation ceremony is going to be held, and they want it during the day because they feel it's so important to have their fellow students there. The preschool and GSRP programs had graduations on Monday that I attended, and tonight, which Mr. DeSarbo was handling for me. It's always fun to see the little 4-year-olds with their graduation caps on, and we should truly, and I know we do record it, because all of the students say what they want to be when they grow up, and I would love to play that back for them when they graduate from high school, because some of them have very interesting choices for what they want to do in the future. We also look forward to welcoming a lot of them back into our kindergarten Young 5 classes. Simon's had a very successful field day today. I just want to thank everyone. It takes a lot of time to plan a field day, and it's funny as I looked out on the field today and I think back to my elementary days, which I'm sure you all can. We all had those field days and those experiences, and some of us were better at some things than others, but it still brings a smile to my face when I see a field day going on. The Milan High School Senior Honors Night was held on Wednesday, May 24th. It was very well done. Just all of the administrators, teachers, presenters, students involved in the program just made the night so very special. It's actually one of my favorite evenings of the year because it's so impressive to see the academic, athletic, career, and just general accomplishments of our graduates. It's kind of the fruits of your labors coming out in one ceremony. And I will tell you, for a small community, the amount of money that organizations and the foundation and everyone gives in scholarships, it's impressive when you see the total dollar amount that it's handed out in scholarships at that senior honors night. And congratulations to all of those students that earned scholarships and department awards. We did add a new award this year, and I'm so thankful, and Mr. McMahon had some work behind this. As you know, we put a English as a second language director in place, and this year at Honors Night, we were able to award numerous students with an award of bilingual, which is actually a state-sponsored award. The students have to prove that they truly are bilingual through a couple of different methods, and they were actually recognized and are given a state-level award for graduating from a high school with the ability to proficiently speak 2 languages. The 6th through 12th grade concert was held on Thursday, May 25th. I was not able to attend because I was at another event, but I heard amazing things about it. The adult education graduation was that same night. Connie Cox hosted a very meaningful ceremony for the graduates. It's always great to see their families there. And remember, the adult education graduation, we can graduate anyone from 19 years old to, in the past, we've had 75-year-olds earning a diploma. We did have an older gentleman in this year's graduating class, and a lot of students that just had struggles and couldn't complete day school and come back and work hard and do earn a Milan diploma. On one of the evenings, we had to double up, and I will let Mr. McMahon talk about why high graduation. I do want to let you know that the District Communications Committee met on Monday, June 5th. The current members reviewed all of the applicants that were achieved by a survey that went out district-wide. The applicant review was conducted in an anonymous fashion, so those 5 current members did not know who they were reviewing. Those 5 members alone, the board member there and I, didn't vote, but the committee is excited to welcome Sochi Blavelt, William Kleiber, and Denise Williams as additional members to the District Communication Committee. We will have one more meeting this year, to kind of set our goals, and the first task next year will be to review the communication questions from the year-end survey and start to really dive into how can we improve our communication methods and frequencies with our community. The Milan High School Grill and Chill event today was a huge success. I thank all of the students that were involved. We did have 2 board members there. Mrs. Gutierrez was there, as was Mrs. Freight. They can now officially work anywhere wrapping hot dogs. They did an amazing job, and we thank them. We also had a lot of other community VIPs there. The mayor was there, some city council members. It's just great to see those folks come in and help out. Some staff news: Enchantra Rettenauer, a Simon's paraprofessional, lost her mother in the last month. As you know, I announced retirements at the last meeting and somehow left Tammy Zajac off. Obviously, you're aware after our recognition tonight. And then I did want to let you know that Caitlin Earhart, a teacher at Paddock, has resigned effective June 13th. She's taking a job closer to home in her home community. The Professional Development Advisory Committee met on Wednesday, May 31st. The committee had a great discussion about professional development topics, and in the end, they approved the list of topics that we can use at our qualified professional development, and they include curriculum, instruction, assessment, including data analysis, classroom management, social emotional learning, including trauma-informed instruction, whole student instruction, including climate and culture, school safety, including ALICE and the management of health issues, diversity, equity, and inclusion, anti-bullying, and communication. So we thank that committee for setting that list, and we use that to guide our professional development opportunities for all of our staff in the district. I also want to let you know I was able to find the lunch prices. I know that question was asked. I was able to find them online. Breakfast is $1.25. Lunch at the elementary school is $2.70 for the base meal and $3 for the upgraded meal. At secondary, it's $3 for the regular meal and $3.50 for the upgraded meal, and adults are $5.25. The last thing I want to say is there was a comment tonight about the budget and the 6-hour day. The 6-hour day and the transition to a 6-hour day does not save the district money. That was not the impetus behind shifting from a 7-hour day to a 6-hour day. There were a lot of other reasons that shift was made. It was not budgetary. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gearbaum. Mr. McMahon.
Yep, I have a few announcements tonight, thank you. One, I want to pass out, if you could help pass down, the COVID-19 benchmark achievement goals. So we've had to do that every year since 2020, 2021. Those are the goals based on the NWA RIT scores. We set the goals in the fall. It's been the same goal for 3 years. 5 RIT points growth on each assessment at Paddock, 4 at Simons, and 3 at the middle school. We were able to get the data in as of Friday and uploaded to produce. You'll see across every demographic and grade level, there's been growth on all 3 of the assessments throughout the year, and we nearly met the goal in every area, so we're real proud of the accomplishment of our teachers and students there. These results will be posted on our transparency website as required by law, and you have them in front of you. I do want to share a quick review of the future Learning Council Summit that we took, the principals and Brian and I went to a couple weeks ago. I mentioned at the last board meeting that we were going to that. It was a really great event. It's capturing the work, the progressive work of districts in the state. It's not encompassing all districts. It's a select group of like 40, including some ISDs. And a main topic there was artificial intelligence, which I mentioned. So we heard some really great conversation. For us, it was a great opportunity to sort of get our minds around some future planning ideas and some motivation to do that work. I am going to be attending a task force tomorrow. Actually, is our meeting for the artificial intelligence task force. It's right now like 10 to 15 districts. It's our first meeting, so we're going to see what we can create of this, but it's to continue that conversation of us staying in front of this technology as fast as we can, as best we can, and trying to find ways to embrace it as a tool for teaching and learning. So I'll report back after that meeting tomorrow to you. As Mr. Gearbaum mentioned, I was able to participate in the Y-High, Washington International High School commencement ceremony. We had 4 students participating in the ceremony. It's a really great event. It was at Hill Auditorium. It's fun to be there. It's a very successful program. It's well renowned. They do a really great event, so it's cool to be a part of that program. I'm glad we had a handful of students participate. And finally, I want to just formally thank our teachers, principals, and support staff for another year under our belt. We were hoping this would be a more normal year. I don't know if normal exists anymore since the advent of the pandemic. It was certainly a trying year. Maybe in terms of the last 4, we're off to a better start, a more normal schedule anyways, but compared to previous years prior to COVID, one of the more challenging as well. But the affect of our staff and our leaders was a little different this year. Instead of whining and succumbing to the pressures and the challenges we faced at the beginning of the year, they became bold and emboldened and empowered and pushed. And they pushed our kids academically, and they pushed our students behaviorally. They responded to their needs, and we ended up with a very successful outcome. And I will say, one of the more positive ends of the year that I've ever experienced, COVID or not, which is remarkable, because it's hard. The teachers are tired, they're stressed, and they're already talking about things for next year, what they're excited about doing next year, which you don't always get. I mean, there's a lot of interesting conversations this time of year. The teachers have certainly earned some time, but it's really great to see how they responded this year, and then the current affect they have is terrific. And I know they're getting a break soon, and I'm looking forward to them having that. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Mr. McMahon. Board member comments. We got a couple items to look at, and then we'll get into comments. Big Red Chat dates. I know Ms. Rosen-Leacher took a look at some of those, so we'll kind of have a little discussion about that, and we can finalize those at our next meeting as well. So, Ms. Rosen-Leacher.
So I looked at the calendar, I looked at our tentative board meeting dates for next year that we reviewed today, and kind of thought, how could we do this and still be really receptive and hear what our community has said. So I looked at Tuesdays, off board meeting weeks, for those big red chats to be held. So the two, and looking at it quarterly, I literally divided the year up and took kind of the middle month of each quarter. So it would be August 29th, potentially, November 28th, February 20th, and May 28th. And that keeps all of our board chats within the academic school year. So that August 29th is the day after school starts, but it keeps it all kind of tightly within the academic year. Just trying to do it in the summer, I don't know how much of our community, because they're in summer mode. So those are the dates I'm proposing.
I will check those against all the school calendars.
Great.
And everything and get back with you and let you know, and then we can bring those to the board for kind of approval when you approve your board meeting dates as well.
Yep.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, cool. Then the next thing is MASB board member awards. So I do have, I have 3 awards for 2 people. One of them is Ms. Macchio, which I will get to her. She's achieved the platinum board member award level. And then I have awards here for Ms. Betty Rosen-Leacher. She has achieved level 1 certified board member and level 2 an award of merit. So she has obviously been busy with her appointment, and we greatly appreciate that. So congratulations to Betty Rosen-Leacher. All right, other board member comments?
Mr. Sislo.
Yes, Ms. Frey.
Mr. Sislo.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't think I sound that much like Miss Frey. I just wanted to point out that the middle school is having their color run on Monday the 12th.
Okay.
And the mentors of the upperclassmen mentors here at the high school will be, I believe most of us will be attending.
Gotcha.
So just wanted to
Okay.
point that out.
I need to, maybe little lights or something. Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Powell. Others?
Mr. Sislo.
I can do Mr. Farrell.
Just a few comments. Earlier tonight, a community member had referenced that I had concerns about, I guess, the educational experience that my kids had at Lincoln Consolidated Schools. In short, I think most people are aware, we left Lincoln Schools because of our concerns. We came to Milan because we felt this was a better fit for our kids. In terms of our superintendent, I believe that Mr. Gearbaugh is quite capable, quite competent. You don't stay in a superintendent role for an extended period of time unless you're capable and competent. And I feel like he does an effective job in managing a very large budget. $33 million is a lot of money for our district administration, especially Mr. Gearbaugh and the accounting team to have to manage. In terms of accountability, the 7 people elected to this board do hold the superintendent accountable. You may not see it in public, but we do. I take my job very seriously. I know that my fellow board members do as well. So I just wanted to touch on that. Also, with respect to Lincoln, again, part of the reason that my family moved from Lincoln to Milan was that Lincoln was in a deficit elimination plan. And obviously, the goal for me as treasurer, the goal, I think, for this board, the goal for Mr. Gearbaugh, I think, is to ensure that we avoid a deficit elimination plan. So we will continue to be mindful of our budget. We will monitor our revenues, we will monitor our expenses, and we will continue to keep the community informed. I also wanted to say a few words about the soccer team. I know someone that's on the soccer team. They did lose in overtime. After 2 overtimes, they went to penalty kicks in a district semifinal against Gross Eel. That's one of their major competitors. I was not able to be there, but I did get play-by-play from some folks. My understanding is that the kids left everything on the field. They had an amazing season with a first-year head coach. I can't say enough about the kids in that program, and just congratulations to all of them. 8th grade graduation, I don't know if it was mentioned, but it is Thursday, June 8th, 6:15 at the middle school gymnasium. 9th grade orientation is at the high school on Wednesday, August 23rd from 12:30 to 2:30. This day serves as an opportunity for new freshmen to walk their high school schedule, open their lockers, learn about high school sports and clubs, and meet current Milan High School students. And then finally, I want to echo what Ryan said. Thank you so much to our teachers, our paras, our staff, our students for a successful year, and I hope you enjoy your break. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farrell. Others?
Mr. Sislo?
Yes, Ms. Ike.
I want to start by thanking all of the administration and the teachers and the staff and all of the community supporters who were here on Sunday for the graduation. It was an incredible event. It was a great celebration of all of those graduating seniors and all of their accomplishments, and a celebration of all of the people that got them to that point. It was just a really nice time, and it was great to see so many community people here supporting their student and, just enjoying themselves all together in one place. So it was a great time. I also want to wish all of the graduates the best of luck. One of you I've known your entire life. Many of you I've known since you were like 3 or 4 years old. And it was just really nice to see this culmination of watching all of you grow up and then walk across that stage. And I know all of you have great things in your future, so I'm very excited. As I told my own graduate, I encourage all of our students to, in quoting Lin-Manuel Miranda, get your education, but don't forget from whence you came. We need all of you to come back and be incredible leaders in our community. It is a wonderful part of Milan that so many people do come back and give back to the community. And I encourage all of you to come back too. We love to see you back here. I also want to thank the staff and the administration and teachers that hosted the senior walkthrough at Paddock. I know it can be very disruptive of the day, but to see all those little kids in the hallway, all the way from preschool up to second grade, cheering for our seniors, and then seeing the seniors go back to where it started for most of them, and see their teachers, and to see Mr. DeSarbo again. It was just a real nice completion of the circle for a lot of people, and so I do appreciate that event. It's not the first one I've attended, but it's just always a nice time. And then also the middle school hosted some of them who had siblings at the middle school, so the seniors then walked over and saw their siblings at the middle school, and it was just a nice community event, so I appreciate all of that, especially in the closing end of the year when everything is already crazy. I want to echo all the congratulations to all of our spring athletes. It was an incredible weekend with the soccer team and the baseball team and the softball team. It's just watching so many of those accomplishments and knowing that most of them are also incredible students. It's a true testament to all of our kids and all of their families and just the work that they put in and day out. So I wish all of them the best of luck, and I really can't wait to see what that softball team has next year, because I think it's going to be great. I also wanted to thank Mr. McMahon for these test scores. I know test scores come up often in these meetings, and so just to give everyone just a little feel for how well our kids did this year. At Paddock, if I'm reading this correctly, and please correct me, Mr. McMahon, if I'm not, at Paddock, if you look at all of the students, they saw a 15-point increase from the fall in reading and a 16-point increase in their scores in math. At Simons, when you look at all of the students, there was a 10-point increase in reading and a 12-point increase in math. And then at the middle school, they had an 8-point increase for the year in reading and an 8-point increase in math for the year. So this is just incredible to me, especially at Paddock, when you take young kids, many of whom have never been at school, and just to see that enormous growth in 1 year is a true testament to all of our teachers generally, but particularly those at Paddock, the way that they can just get those kids in and get them into a routine, and the amount of learning that can happen in 1 year is always incredible. So thank you to all of them. And thank you to the parents. I don't want to forget the parents in all of this, or at least the grown-ups at home, because, I mean, if you're a parent or, you know, a trusted adult to a student, you know how much work goes on or needs to go on at home in order to see this type of success too. And it's reading at night when you don't want to do anything but go to bed yourself. And it's making sure, you know, math in elementary school is no joke. It's just, so I want to commend all of the families that are also helping our students with this growth, because the teachers do a lot, but they can't do it without the, you know, grown-ups at home also reinforcing it. So thank you to everyone for all your hard work.
Cool. Thank you.
Mr. Sislo?
Yes, Ms. Gutierrez.
I'd first like to thank our graduates across the district. I'm a sucker for graduation. I love graduation. And it doesn't matter if it's preschool kids graduating or all the way up. To see the joy and the excitement of the graduates as well as the community, and the amount of pride that we have of those students is just, it's contagious. And it's, I didn't have anyone graduating this year, but I was delighted to attend several of the graduations, and it was just joyous. And I think it's just a reflection of the love that this district has for our students and our students' appreciation of what this district gives to them. And I think we as a community should be very proud of our students and of ourselves and of the grown-ups in this district
who help foster that love of learning and love of community as well. Good luck to the students on their final exams coming up in the next couple of days. I have a house full of people that are very excited about summer break, and their next couple days does not sound quite as daunting as final exams, so I wish those of you that have exams good luck. My house is full of people who are enjoying their last few days of the school year with really fun things. This afternoon I was at Simon's Field Day, and man, that was a good time. I was running the fastest fourth grader station, and we have some future track stars coming up in Simon's. But I really appreciate the teachers and the staff who pulled that off, to the many, many parent volunteers that were there across the day, to the PTO who contributed popsicles, which were a big hit. I know Paddocks is on Friday, and Milan Middle Schools is having their color run on Monday, as Tom mentioned. And so those are highly anticipated, really joyous times for students, and I think it's a great capping of the year. I'd also like to thank Mr. McMahon for these test scores. I've been a bit distracted as I've been studying these, because you can't just give someone who does data for a living these and without wanting to pore over them in every permutation. But I agree with Ms. Heike's assessment of the positivity coming out of these. And if I'm reading these correctly, I'd like to highlight for our community that it appears to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that in each building, in Paddock, in Simons, and in the middle school, our students overall, when we're looking at those buildings overall, met the benchmark from fall to winter, and again from winter to spring in the reading and math categories. And so I think that the message here is extremely positive. I think that this reinforces the incredible resilience of our students, of our staff, of our community in terms of working hard and showing tremendous capacity for growth. And we know test scores are not the only metric of the well-being of learning in a building, but I think this, coupled with what we're seeing on the ground, in the classroom, types of examples anecdotally is just a very, very positive message. And so with that, it's a great way to end the school year in my mind, and it really reinforces my deep, deep gratitude to our administrators, to our staff, to our teachers, our paras, our lunch monitors, our bus drivers, our custodians, all of the people who make this place tick. And I wish them the most relaxing and wonderful summer, because I think we all deeply deserve and need a really wonderful summer and a restful summer, and I'm extremely grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Others?
Mr. Sisler?
Yes, Ms. Murray.
Just very quickly, continuing the theme of these amazing school and community partnerships that we enjoy here in Milan, I wanted to extend a quick shout out and a thanks to the staff and the community and parent volunteers at the middle school, as well as some Milan High School students who volunteered at their Amazing Shake event, which was earlier this week, yesterday. I've lost track of the days, but it was kind of an indoor field day type event with different rotations and stations, focusing on all different kinds of life skills, from being able to calculate a tip to having a great handshake. And I just thought it was a really wonderful activity for the last week of school, and an awesome way to kind of infuse some of those whole person skills into our curriculum that we don't normally get a chance to focus on. And it was just really cool to see, again, that wraparound support, our parents, our grown-ups, our staff, and then our high school students coming back to support the younger students. And then similarly, I'd like to thank the Milan High School GSA students and staff for all of the work that they've put in. Their big event is coming up tomorrow at Wilson Park, the Pride Picnic, and all of the associated events going with that. It's just amazing to see how that event has grown over the last couple of years, and how it truly has become a school and community partnership in the effort to create this environment of inclusion, acceptance, understanding, and support around that community. So just really appreciate all of those efforts, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of the fruits of their labors. And then I think that was about it. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
It's me, Mr. Sislam.
I can hear you now. That's great.
It's truly me. I just would like to thank the board and Brian and Andrew for inviting the teachers here tonight, because although I know we do the retirement where we celebrate them a little bit more and you get to do a little bit more personal, it's nice to be able to, as a board, be able to see them. Several of them had impacts on my life, so I really appreciate the opportunity to just be able to say thank you. And I do wish them the best in retirement, as well as summer to our staff, just to take off Brian and everyone else. If I counted correctly, we have 3.5 days, and they'll probably feel like 30. So I hope that the last 3.5, go smoothly and are as much fun as me and Mrs. Gutierrez had today, doing the hot dogs. And I really appreciate the staff reaching out to us and giving us the opportunities to come in and do those events, because it's really rather great. And I will give kudos to, was it Penelope that won tug of war?
She did.
At the
Yes,
field day,
fourth grade,
right?
Ms. Jordette's class.
Yeah, and as Mr. Gearbo pointed out, when you remember your field day days, it's fun to know all those accomplishments, and it's nice to know that those things are still going on in all of our lives, and especially in our kids' lives. And I really appreciate graduation for all of us. It was really fun. It always is. All of our graduation ceremonies are really nice. It's incredibly powerful to sit back, like Michelle said, and just see all of our students walk across that stage. One in particular we had, and I think I talked to a parapro today, I can remember in paddock, a special needs student, and when she walked across that stage, it was phenomenal, very, very phenomenal. She didn't walk as well as a incoming student, and so it was phenomenal to see her walk across. Go little Jaden. I also want to thank, our parent groups, because our PTOs and all of our groups that come out and do things with our parents, it's phenomenal what they do to support our kids. Our bilingual awards, thank you, Brian, for bringing those up. They were rather phenomenal. We had 4 individuals stand on this stage, and although 3 of them are at home speaking it because they came across that naturally by birth, we did have one, and Ryan might remember his name, who was an English-speaking individual, but it tested and got the state certification, I believe, on his diploma for being bilingual in Spanish. So it was really rather neat, part of our ceremony, to have 4 of our students come out and get that and receive the special cords and do all that. It was very neat to experience and have all of that. It was an awesome honors night, and again, I thank the board for allowing me to be a part of that. I really appreciate it. And I wish us all, well, we'll still be here, but our staff a really restful and peaceful summer, and cannot look forward to, or very much look forward to them coming back. Thank you, Mr. Still.
Thank you, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Sislo.
Yeah, it's Ms. Rosenleacher.
So while there's so much to celebrate, I do want to point out to all of our 8th grade parents, please, 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 if you haven't read the newsletter from Mrs. Jasper that came out, please look at that. Your child will be getting their 9th grade schedule on Friday, and it's the only paper copy. They'll still be able to access their schedule later in the summer on Power School, but if you want that paper copy in hand, they're getting it on Friday. So I think that's just a really important reminder. Those newsletters are chock full of great information, so thank you to Mrs. Jasper for sending those out. I'd also like to echo what everyone else has said about our graduates. I will tell you, for the first time sitting on that stage looking out and being able to see the faces of our students and our families, it was just the most joyous moment. And I don't know if it's always like this. I have a hard time remembering from when my daughters graduated, but that graduating class that we had this year celebrated every single student who walked across that stage, and that was remarkable. From first to last, it didn't wane, and everyone in between. And the handshakes that we got were second to none. I don't know if they did that in middle school when they were going through, I'm guessing, well, maybe, I don't know. But what an incredible group of young people that are going out into this world. They are going to make such a difference. I'm so honored and proud to be representing them in this community. I also like to just say congratulations again to our retirees. September will never be the same. I promise you that. And then to Ms. Kashmir, just thank you for all that you have done for Milan area schools. I am always in awe of our student theater production managers and the work that they do, and it's a real credit to you. So good luck on your next adventure. I'm sure Mr. Daniels will do a fine job under your tutoring and leadership. And finally, as this is our last meeting before the end of the school year, just take time to breathe, enjoy yourselves, relax, and come back with as much gusto next year as you've shown to all of us this year. So thank you.
All right. I want to thank you all for letting me go last, because I have nothing to say. But I do have a few things to say. First, I just want to thank the board members too. I want to thank Ms. Freight for being on WASB, doing the awards night, going to the grilling event. I appreciate that. Ms. Murray for being our voting representative at WASD to take care of that. Also attending the young adult graduation. And then Ms. Rosenleacher filling in for you at the communications meeting on Monday. I greatly appreciate that. We did miss Tom at graduation, but he did attend young adult graduation, so we appreciate that. And then Ms. Gutierrez with field day and the grilling event too. So I appreciate the board going out and being a part of those celebrations and seeing the great work of the entire district. I also echo thank you to the student board members. Look forward to having you next year if you want to continue. Usually we have a junior and a senior, but we have 2 juniors, so we welcome you back next year. You're going to say something?
I actually wanted to speak with you and Mr. Gearbaugh about that after the meeting.
Okay. And then, obviously, yeah, I want to thank our retirees as well. I'm glad that some of them came to be recognized this evening. And then, I mean, anybody that steps on Milan area schools property inside a door to grow our kids in this community, thank you so much. I think when I start to try to list people, I always miss some group. So I just want to say thank you to everyone who contributes in any matter to the growth of our kids. Because some of those test scores can be related to a lunch lady or a bus driver as well, to get them going on the right start. So I greatly appreciate the contributions of everybody. It's just not the teachers that are increasing those scores. I think everybody has a role in that. And then, yes, I want to echo what Ms. Rosenleacher said about our students, because she did mention to me on Sunday about the handshakes, and I totally agree. It's like every one of those was a firm handshake.
Yes.
Sometimes they're not, and it makes you proud, makes me proud to be a Big Red, and it makes me proud to know that that they're confident in what they know, what's going to be ahead of them, even though they may not know exactly what it is, but they left this area, they left this school system in confidence because of what they learned, and that is the legacy that we want to leave. Everybody have a great summer. We look forward to having you back again in August, not September. Any other comments or concerns? I don't have the time with me. Meeting is adjourned at 9:18.